Here's one factoid I really like. From 2018 to 2021, the interest rates fell so much that we could have reduced mortgages from 30-year mortgages to 20-year mortgages without increasing the monthly payment, just because interest rates had fallen so much. Which brings up the whole point of how did we end up with 30-year mortgages? It's not uncommon for foreign countries to have the standard mortgage be 20 years. And it was standard in the US until the mid-50s. There was a recession. So the FHA changed it so their mortgages would go to 30 years, basically to boost the economy. And it did boost the economy. But ever since then, for decades and decades and decades, home buyers have 10 extra years of mortgage payments just because the government wanted to beef up the economy in 1954. So that's a big thing, particularly for me, on how we could help new home buyers today and in the future, is because most of the gain in home prices was because of falling interest rates. That's not going to happen to home buyers who bought since about 2022 on. But we could make it better for them if we had government programs to shift to 20-year mortgages, back to 20-year mortgages, like we used to have and like other countries have. So that's the idea. 20-year mortgages. So that means the policy is we want free and clear home ownership is a federal policy, not mortgage ownership, which is the current federal policy. Okay, another factoid about 20-year mortgages. It was FHA who started it out by law. And then back then, other mortgages, like savings and loans were big. They stuck with 20 years, but to compete, they all moved up to 30-year mortgages within several years. Something that was interesting is in the early 50s, there was extremely low numbers of foreclosures and distressed home buyers. But by the early 60s, it was a big problem, partly because of 30-year mortgages. Because with a 20-year mortgage, after you own it for 5 years, you own about double the amount of equity than you do with a 30-year mortgage. That's just the way it is. And the amount of money you pay in interest is phenomenally less on a 20-year than a 30-year. But thanks to the government and they're trying to help out the business sector. In 1954, we've had 30-year mortgages for over half a century since then. And we've become, like I said, a mortgage ownership society instead of a home ownership society. Let's say in an alternate universe in 2018, we had decided we're not going to lower our interest rates, we're going to shorten the length of the mortgages. That means prices would not have skyrocketed like they did, and everybody who got a loan during the COVID boom would have mortgages with 20 years instead of 30. And they would have even if prices fell, they would have fallen far less because they would have jumped up a lot less. And they would be building equity about twice as fast because it's a 20-year mortgage instead of a 30-year. Great, thanks for listening.